I first met Marek Kowalski on a chilly evening in the autumn of 1942. The air was crisp, and the streets of Warsaw were enveloped in a foreboding silence, broken only by the distant, ominous sounds of German soldiers patrolling the city. My family had been on the run for days, moving from one hiding place to another, always one step ahead of the Gestapo. Marek's name had come to us through whispers in the underground network of those daring enough to resist. Marek was a mechanic by trade, with a reputation for being able to fix anything with an engine. But it was his heart and courage that truly set him apart. He had transformed his modest workshop into a sanctuary, a hidden oasis of hope amidst the relentless oppression. As we approached his workshop, my mother, father, and I were filled with a mix of trepidation and desperate hope. The workshop was nestled in a narrow alley, its exterior unassuming and worn. Marek himself was a towering figure with dark skin, a rarity in Poland, and a testament to his African roots. He greeted us with a warm smile and a firm handshake, his eyes conveying a sense of quiet strength. "Welcome," he said, his voice deep and reassuring. "You are safe here." As we settled into the workshop, Marek showed us the hidden compartments and secret passages he had ingeniously crafted. The walls were lined with tools and spare parts, but behind false panels and beneath loose floorboards, there was enough space to hide several families. It was a marvel of engineering and a testament to Marek's ingenuity. "Jacob," Marek said, turning to me, "would you like to see something special?" I nodded, my curiosity piqued. He led me to a small, dimly lit room at the back of the workshop. There, resting on a worn wooden table, was a violin. Its varnish was chipped, and the strings looked like they hadn't been played in years. "I heard you play the violin," Marek said, his eyes twinkling with a rare light. "This belonged to my father. I thought you might like to have it." I was speechless. The violin felt like a lifeline, a piece of my past that I thought I had lost forever. Marek's kindness was overwhelming. "Thank you," I managed to say, my voice choked with emotion. "I don't know how to repay you." Marek smiled and placed a hand on my shoulder. "You don't need to repay me, Jacob. Just keep playing. Music has a way of bringing light to the darkest places." Over the next few weeks, our lives settled into a precarious routine. By day, Marek repaired cars and machinery for the Germans, maintaining the facade of a loyal and hard-working mechanic. By night, he orchestrated daring escape plans, guiding Jewish families through a network of safe houses and secret routes to the border. One evening, as I practiced the violin in a corner of the workshop, Marek approached me with a thoughtful expression. "Jacob," he began, "I need your help with something." I put down the violin and looked up at him, eager to assist in any way I could. "We have a new group arriving tonight," he explained. "I need you to keep an eye out and let me know if you see or hear anything unusual." I nodded solemnly, understanding the gravity of the situation. Marek's workshop had become a lifeline for so many, and any mistake could mean death for all of us. As the hours passed, the tension in the air grew palpable. The sound of footsteps echoed through the alley, and my heart raced. Marek motioned for me to stay hidden as he went to greet the newcomers. I watched from the shadows, my breath held. The group was smaller than expected, just a mother and her 2 children. They looked exhausted and terrified, their eyes darting nervously around the workshop. Marek greeted them with his usual warmth, offering food and a place to rest. "You're safe now," he assured them. "We'll get you out of here soon." As the family settled in, Marek returned to my side, his expression serious. "Jacob, I need you to play the violin," he said quietly. "Now?" I asked, surprised. "Yes," he replied. "Music has a way of calming the soul. It will help them feel safe." I picked up the violin and began to play a soft, soothing melody. The notes filled the workshop, weaving through the air like a comforting embrace. The mother and her children visibly relaxed, their faces softening as the music washed over them. Marek watched with a gentle smile, his eyes reflecting a deep sense of fulfillment. In that moment, I realized that his workshop was more than just a refuge. It was a beacon of hope, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Days turned into weeks, and our bonds with Marek grew stronger. He became more than just our protector. He became a friend, a mentor, and a source of unwavering strength. We shared stories of our pasts, dreams of a future free from fear, and moments of laughter amidst the turmoil. One evening, as we sat together in the dim light of the workshop, Marek shared a piece of his own history. "My father was a musician," he said, his voice tinged with nostalgia. "He taught me the value of music, of how it can bring people together and heal even the deepest wounds." I listened intently, captivated by his words. "He faced his own struggles," Marek continued. "Being of African descent in Poland was never easy, but he never let that define him. He taught me to see beyond the surface, to find the common thread that connects us all." His words resonated deeply with me. In a world divided by hatred and fear, Marek's workshop was a testament to the power of unity and compassion. As the months went by, Marek's efforts to save lives became increasingly daring. He formed alliances with members of the Polish resistance, orchestrating more complex and dangerous escape routes. Each successful mission was a victory, a small but significant blow against the oppressive regime. But with each victory came greater risks. The Gestapo was relentless, and the walls of Marek's sanctuary seemed to close in around us. One night, as we prepared for yet another escape, Marek pulled me aside. "Jacob, I need you to promise me something," he said, his tone serious. "What is it?" I asked, sensing the weight of his words. "If anything happens to me, you must continue the work," he said firmly. "You must help others, just as I have helped you." I was taken aback, the gravity of his request sinking in. But I nodded, understanding the importance of his mission. "I promise," I said, my voice steady. Marek smiled, a mixture of pride and sadness in his eyes. "You're a brave young man, Jacob. I have faith in you." As the war raged on, the challenges grew more daunting, but so did our resolve. Marek's workshop became a symbol of hope, a testament to the strength of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable adversity. And through it all, the music of my violin continued to weave its way through the darkness, a reminder that even in the bleakest of times, there is always a glimmer of light. Marek's refuge was more than just a hiding place. It was a sanctuary of hope, a beacon of resistance, and a testament to the enduring power of compassion and humanity. And in the heart of that sanctuary, the bond between Marek and I grew stronger, a friendship forged in the crucible of war, and a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope. Chapter 2. The Encounter with the Resistance. I remember the day I was first approached by the resistance as if it were yesterday. It was a bleak, cold evening, and the sky was overcast, mirroring the oppressive atmosphere that had settled over Poland. My workshop, a place of refuge and silent rebellion, was filled with the sound of metal clinking and engines rumbling, a facade of normalcy amidst the chaos. As I was working on an old truck, trying to fix its stubborn engine, I heard the door creak open. I looked up, and there stood a man I had never seen before. He was tall, with a weathered face and piercing blue eyes that seemed to hold 1,000 secrets. He was dressed modestly, his coat frayed at the edges, but there was an air of quiet determination about him. "Are you Marek Kowalski?" he asked, his voice low and cautious. I wiped my hands on a rag, nodding. "Yes, that's me. How can I help you?" He glanced around the workshop, ensuring we were alone, before stepping closer. "My name is Piotr. I'm with the Resistance. We've heard about what you're doing here, about the people you've helped." My heart skipped a beat. The Resistance. I had heard whispers about their daring operations, their acts of sabotage against the Nazis. To be approached by them meant I was now part of something much bigger than myself. "What do you need from me?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Piotr's eyes softened slightly, and he leaned in. "We need your help. Your workshop is in a strategic location, and it could serve as a safe house and a storage point for supplies. We also need skilled hands for our operations." I nodded slowly, understanding the gravity of what he was asking. "I'm in. Tell me what I need to do." Over the next few weeks, my workshop transformed from a simple mechanic's haven into a bustling hub of resistance activity. It became a place where plans were hatched and supplies were stored. We received stolen weapons, food, and medical supplies, all of which were carefully hidden among the car parts and machinery. One evening, as I was working late, Piotr arrived with a sense of urgency. "Marek, we have a mission tonight. We need to sabotage a train carrying Nazi supplies. Can you help us?" I set down my tools and nodded. "Of course. What do you need me to do?" Piotr outlined the plan. We would sneak into the train yard under the cover of darkness, plant explosives on the tracks, and derail the train. It was a risky operation, but one that could deal a significant blow to the Nazi war effort. As we prepared for the mission, I felt a mixture of fear and determination. I knew the risks, but I also knew that every act of resistance brought us one step closer to freedom. That night, we crept through the shadows, our hearts pounding in unison. We reached the train yard and set to work, planting the explosives with careful precision. Just as we were about to leave, a spotlight swept across the yard, and we froze. "Who goes there?" A guard's voice rang out, harsh and commanding. Pyotr motioned for us to stay hidden. "Stay calm," he whispered. "Wait for my signal." The guard's footsteps grew closer, and I held my breath, praying we wouldn't be discovered. Suddenly, Pyotr sprang into action, lunging at the guard and knocking him out with a swift blow. We dragged the unconscious guard into the shadows and made our escape just as the explosives detonated, sending a deafening roar through the night. We ran through the darkness, our hearts pounding with adrenaline. When we finally reached the safety of my workshop, we collapsed in relief, our faces flushed with the success of the mission. "That was close," I said, catching my breath. Pyotr nodded, a rare smile playing on his lips. "But we did it, Marek. We dealt a blow to the Nazis, and we'll keep fighting until they're gone." Our successful mission only strengthened our resolve. My workshop became a vital node in the resistance network, a place where plans were made and courage was forged. It wasn't long before I earned the trust and respect of my fellow resistance fighters. One particular night, as we gathered to discuss an upcoming mission, a young woman named Katarzyna approached me. She had been a part of the resistance for longer than I had, and her bravery was well known among us. "Marek," she began, her voice filled with a mix of admiration and concern, "you've done so much for us, but I worry about the risks you're taking. Your workshop, it's not just a place for repairs anymore. It's a target." I met her gaze, understanding the weight of her words. "I know, Katarzyna, but I can't turn back now. Every life we save, every blow we strike against the Nazis, it's worth the risk." She nodded, her eyes reflecting a deep understanding. "Just promise me you'll be careful. We can't afford to lose you." As we continued our work, the bonds of camaraderie grew stronger. We shared not only the dangers but also moments of hope and humanity. Jacob, the young violinist I had taken in, often played for us, his music a balm for our weary souls. It was during one such evening, as Jacob's haunting melody filled the workshop, that I realized the true power of our resistance. It wasn't just about sabotage and survival, it was about preserving the very essence of humanity in the face of unimaginable darkness. One night, Pyotr brought news of a particularly dangerous mission. We were to intercept a convoy transporting vital Nazi intelligence. The information could turn the tide of our struggle, but the risks were immense. "Marek, this mission, it's unlike any we've undertaken before," Pyotr said, his voice heavy with the weight of the task ahead. "We need your expertise with vehicles. Can you modify a truck for us, one that can handle rough terrain and evade detection?" I nodded, already envisioning the modifications in my mind. "I'll get to work immediately." "When do we leave?" "Tomorrow night," Pyotr replied. "It's our only window of opportunity." The hours that followed were a blur of activity. I worked tirelessly, transforming an old truck into a machine capable of navigating the treacherous paths we would encounter. As I labored, Jacob approached, his violin case in hand. "Marek," he said softly, "I know I can't go with you, but I want to help. Can I play something for you? Something to keep your spirits up?" I smiled, grateful for his presence. "Of course, Jacob. Play something that will remind us why we fight." Jacob's fingers danced over the strings, and the workshop filled with a soulful melody that seemed to transcend the darkness around us. It was a reminder of the beauty and resilience of the human spirit, a beacon of hope in a world torn apart by war. The following night, we set out on our mission. The modified truck performed flawlessly as we navigated through forests and fields, avoiding Nazi patrols. When we finally reached the convoy, we sprang into action, our hearts pounding with a mix of fear and determination. The ensuing battle was fierce, but our preparations paid off. We managed to intercept the convoy and retrieve the intelligence, a victory that bolstered our spirits. As we made our way back to the workshop, I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride in what we had accomplished. Back at the workshop, as we celebrated our success, Pyotr raised a glass. to Merrick, whose skills and courage have become indispensable to our cause, and to all of us, for our unwavering determination." The room erupted in cheers, and for a moment, the weight of the war lifted, replaced by a sense of unity and purpose. We were more than just resistance fighters. We were a family bound by a shared dream of freedom and a better future. In the days that followed, our resolve only grew stronger. We continued to fight, knowing that every act of defiance brought us closer to victory. And through it all, my workshop remained a symbol of hope, a place where courage was forged and humanity endured. As I look back on those days, I realized that it wasn't just the acts of sabotage or the strategic victories that defined our struggle. It was the connections we made, the friendships we forged, and the unwavering belief that even in the darkest of times, hope can prevail. And in the heart of it all was my workshop, a sanctuary of resilience and defiance, where the spirit of resistance burned bright. ##### the blossoming love. As the days passed, the atmosphere in my workshop began to change. Among the many faces that sought refuge within my walls, there was one that stood out with an undeniable radiance: Anna. She was unlike anyone I had ever met, and despite the darkness that surrounded us, her presence brought a warmth and light that seemed almost out of place in such grim times. Anna had a spirit that was both fierce and gentle. She was always the first to offer a hand, whether it was helping to prepare meals or assisting with the logistics of planning escape routes. Her laughter, rare as it was, echoed in the corners of the workshop, a sound that seemed to momentarily lift the weight of our collective fear. One evening, after a particularly harrowing day, I found myself alone with Anna in the dim light of the workshop. The others had gone to their makeshift sleeping quarters, leaving us in a rare moment of quiet. "Merrick," she said softly, her eyes meeting mine, "do you ever wonder what life will be like after all of this?" I paused, the question hanging in the air between us. It was a question I had often asked myself, but had never dared to voice aloud. "Every day," I admitted, "I dream of a time when we can live without fear, without hiding. A time when we can be free." Anna smiled, a wistful look in her eyes. "I have dreams too. I dream of a small house by the sea, where I can hear the waves crashing against the shore. A place where we can rebuild our lives." Her words painted a picture so vivid that I could almost see it. "It sounds beautiful," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Maybe one day, we will see that place together." In that moment, something shifted between us. The bond we had formed through shared danger and struggle deepened into something more. We both knew that our love was a fragile thing, born in the most perilous of times, but it was also a beacon of hope. As the days turned into weeks, our relationship grew in the stolen moments we could find. Every touch, every glance, was charged with the knowledge that our time together could be cut short at any moment. We shared our fears, our hopes, and our dreams, finding solace in each other's presence. One night, as we sat huddled together in a corner of the workshop, Anna turned to me, her eyes filled with determination. "Merrick, we need to find a safer way to get people out. The routes we've been using are becoming too dangerous." I nodded, knowing she was right. "I've been thinking the same. We need to find a new path, one that the Nazis haven't discovered yet." Together, we began to plan. Anna's resourcefulness and quick thinking were invaluable. She suggested using the old sewer tunnels that ran beneath the city, a network that was largely forgotten and overlooked. "It's risky," I said, considering the idea, "but it might be our best option." Anna's eyes sparkled with a fierceness that I had come to admire. "We have to try, for the sake of everyone we're trying to save." In the weeks that followed, we meticulously mapped out the sewer system, identifying the safest routes and potential hazards. It was dangerous work, but with Anna by my side, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. One evening, as we were finalizing our plans, Anna reached out and took my hand. "Merrick, I don't know what the future holds, but I want you to know that whatever happens, I'm grateful for every moment we've had together." Her words touched me deeply, and I squeezed her hand in return. "Anna, you are my strength. As long as we have each other, we can face anything." Our newfound route proved to be a success. We were able to lead several groups of refugees through the sewers to safety, each successful escape bolstering our spirits and strengthening the bond between us. Despite the constant danger, Anna and I found moments of joy and tenderness. We would steal away to a quiet corner of the workshop or the tunnels, sharing whispered conversations and stolen kisses. Our love was a defiant act of hope in a world that seemed determined to crush it. One night, as we lay side by side in the darkness, Anna turned to me, her voice soft and filled with emotion. "Merrick, promise me that no matter what happens, you'll keep fighting. For us, for everyone." I pulled her close, my heart heavy with the weight of her words. "I promise, Anna. I will never give up. As long as I have breath in my body, I will fight for a better future." As the war raged on, our love became a source of strength not just for us, but for everyone around us. Our comrades in the resistance drew inspiration from our bond, seeing in it a symbol of what we were fighting for, a world where love and hope could flourish, even in the darkest of times. One night, as we were preparing for another mission, Anna looked at me with a mixture of determination and sadness. "Merrick, there's something I need to tell you." I felt a knot of worry tighten in my chest. "What is it, Anna?" She took a deep breath, her eyes never leaving mine. "I've been offered a chance to work with another resistance cell. They need someone to gather intelligence from within the Nazi ranks." The thought of her putting herself in even greater danger filled me with dread. "Anna, that's incredibly risky. I can't bear the thought of losing you." She reached out and cupped my face in her hands. "I know, Merrick. But this is something I have to do. If I can gather valuable information, it could save countless lives." Tears filled my eyes as I pulled her into a tight embrace. "Just promise me you'll be careful. I can't lose you, Anna." She held me close, her voice trembling with emotion.
"I promise, Marek."
"I'll do everything I can to come back to you." As we parted ways that night, I couldn't shake the feeling of foreboding that hung over me. The days that followed were filled with a sense of emptiness without Anna by my side, but I clung to the hope that she would return safely. Our love had given me a renewed sense of purpose, a reason to keep fighting even when the odds seemed insurmountable. And though the future was uncertain, I held on to the belief that one day we would find our way back to each other and build the life we had dreamed of. In the end, it was our love that kept me going, a beacon of hope in the storm that raged around us. And no matter what the future held, I knew that the bond we had forged in those dark days would endure, a testament to the enduring power of love and hope in the face of unimaginable adversity. #the traitorous neighbor. Life during the Nazi occupation was an endless cycle of fear and hope, of shadowy meetings and whispered plans. It was a constant balancing act between survival and resistance. For me, Marek Kowalski, a black Polish mechanic with African roots, the stakes were higher still. My workshop had become a sanctuary, a clandestine haven for Jewish families seeking to escape the unspeakable horrors that awaited them under Nazi rule. As I repaired cars by day, by night I meticulously crafted escape routes, each one fraught with peril but brimming with the promise of freedom. But every haven has its threats, and ours came in the form of Stanislaw, a neighbor whose sharp eyes and sharper tongue posed a constant risk to our operations. Stanislaw had always been a bitter man, nursing grievances that seemed to grow with each passing day. His resentment towards me was barely concealed, simmering just below the surface, fed by the toxic brew of prejudice and envy. One fateful evening, the air thick with the scent of burning wood and the distant rumble of artillery, I gathered with Jacob, a young Jewish violinist I had recently taken under my wing, and Anna, a woman whose indomitable spirit had ignited a love I hadn't thought possible in these dark times. We were huddled in the back of the workshop, going over the final details of a new escape route. "Marek," Jacob began, his voice tinged with a tremor of youth and fear, "are you sure this route is safe?" I looked at him, his wide eyes reflecting the flickering candlelight. "As safe as it can be, Jacob. We've checked and double-checked. We just need to be cautious, like always." Anna placed a reassuring hand on Jacob's shoulder. "We trust Marek. He's gotten us this far, hasn't he?" Just as I was about to respond, we heard it, voices and the unmistakable sound of boots crunching on gravel. My heart raced. Stanislaw. He had finally made his move. "Quick," I hissed, grabbing the nearest bag filled with essentials. "We need to go. Now." We didn't have time to gather everything. Jacob clutched his violin case, Anna grabbed a small satchel, and I snatched up a bundle of documents and plans. We slipped out the back, the cold night air biting at our skin as we made our way through the narrow alleyways behind the workshop. As we moved, the sound of voices grew louder, more distinct. The guttural tones of German mingled with Stanislaw's nasally Polish. "They're here," I whispered, my breath fogging in the chill. We need to find shelter before they catch up. We darted from shadow to shadow, our breaths coming in ragged gasps. Finally, we found refuge in an abandoned building, its walls crumbling but providing just enough cover. We crouched low, listening intently as the voices drew closer. "There was movement here, I'm sure of it," Stanislaus' voice carried through the night. "That filthy mechanic is hiding something." A German officer's voice responded, cold and authoritative. "We will search every inch. If he's hiding Jews, we'll find them." As the search party began to comb through the area, we held our breath, every creak and rustle sending jolts of fear through our bodies. Minutes felt like hours, but finally, the voices began to fade. They hadn't found us. Not yet, at least. "We can't stay here," Anna whispered, her eyes wide with urgency. "We need to get to the safe house." I nodded, my mind racing. "There's a farmhouse on the outskirts. It's isolated, and we have allies there. We need to move quickly, before they double back." Jacob's grip on his violin case tightened. "I can't believe Stanislaw would do this. We were neighbors. How could he betray us?" "Fear makes people do terrible things," I replied grimly. "But we can't dwell on that now. We need to focus on surviving." We made our way to the farmhouse, every step fraught with the danger of discovery. The journey was perilous, but we finally arrived, greeted by the warm, welcoming faces of our allies. The farmhouse, with its hidden passages and secluded location, became our new base of operations. In the days that followed, we continued our work, using the farmhouse as a new sanctuary. The tension never fully abated, but we found moments of solace. Jacob's violin, its haunting melodies a stark contrast to the world outside, became a beacon of hope. Anna and I, despite the constant threat, found strength in our love, planning for a future that seemed impossibly distant. But the shadow of Stanislaw's betrayal loomed large. We knew that as long as he was out there, our safety was never guaranteed. The resistance was aware of him now, and steps were being taken to deal with the threat he posed. Yet, the uncertainty gnawed at us. One evening, as we sat around the farmhouse's modest table, Anna voiced what we had all been thinking. "We can't live like this forever, always looking over our shoulders. Something has to change." "I know," I replied, my voice heavy with the weight of our reality. "But until the Nazis are driven out, we have to keep fighting. For those we've lost, and for those we can still save." Jacob looked up from his violin, his eyes filled with a newfound determination. "We'll make it through this. Together." We shared a moment of silent resolve, our bond forged in the crucible of adversity. The road ahead was fraught with danger, but we were united in our purpose. Days turned into weeks, and the situation in the region grew increasingly volatile. The resistance was gaining ground, but the cost was high. We received word that Stanislaw had been apprehended by the resistance. His fate was to be determined by those he had wronged. The night of his trial, the farmhouse was tense with anticipation. Jacob, Anna, and I sat together, the flickering fire casting shadows on the walls. The news, when it came, was delivered by a fellow resistance member. "Stanislaw has been judged for his betrayals," the man said solemnly. "He will face the consequences of his actions." There was no joy in the announcement, only a grim satisfaction that justice was being served. Stanislaw's betrayal had cost us dearly, but it had also strengthened our resolve. We would continue to fight, to resist, and to protect those who could not protect themselves. As the war dragged on, the tide began to turn. The Nazis, once seemingly invincible, were now on the defensive. The end was in sight, though not without further sacrifices. Our little group, battered but unbroken, held on to the hope that had sustained us through so many dark days. And then, finally, the day came. The war was over. The Nazis were defeated. The world, scarred and weary, began the slow process of healing. Jacob, his violin in hand, stood before a crowd of survivors and allies, his music a tribute to those we had lost and a celebration of our hard-won freedom. Anna and I, our love tested and tempered by the fires of war, stood together, looking towards a future that was now within our grasp. The story of our struggle, of the sanctuary we had built and the lives we had saved, spread far and wide. Marek Kowalski, the mechanic who had become a symbol of hope, was celebrated as a hero. But to me, the true heroes were those who had stood by my side, who had fought and sacrificed for a better world. Jacob's music, filled with the soul of our shared experiences, carried our story to the far corners of the earth. And in each note, the memory of our journey, of the love and loss, of the betrayal and the triumph, lived on. In the end, it was not just our victory, but a testament to the enduring strength of the human spirit. In the darkest of times, we had found hope. In the face of unimaginable cruelty, we had found courage. And in the midst of the storm, we had found each other. Chapter 5. The New Base. I found refuge in an isolated farm, hidden away from the prying eyes of the Nazis and traitors like Stanislaw. The farm belonged to an old friend, Josef, who had been a part of the local resistance for years. The place was perfect for our needs, surrounded by dense woods and far from any main roads. Josef had once used the farm for his agricultural experiments, but now it became a sanctuary for our desperate cause. "Welcome, Marek," Josef greeted me warmly, his eyes betraying the burden of years of resistance. "It's not much, but it's safe." "It's more than we could ask for, Josef," I replied, shaking his hand firmly. "Thank you for taking us in." As we settled in, we discovered that the farm had old, forgotten tunnels beneath it, remnants of past wars. These tunnels were a godsend, providing us with a secure way to move supplies and people without being detected. We immediately began fortifying our new base, setting up hidden rooms, stockpiling food, medicine, and whatever weapons we could scavenge. Jacob, despite the constant fear that gnawed at him, found solace in his violin. The haunting melodies he played would drift through the farm, providing a rare sense of peace and normalcy. One evening, after a particularly harrowing day, Jacob played a soft, melancholic tune that brought tears to many eyes. "Jacob, that was beautiful," Anna said, sitting next to him as he lowered the violin. "It reminds us of what we're fighting for." Jacob nodded, his eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and determination. "Music is all I have left of my old life. It's my way of fighting back." Anna and I often found ourselves talking late into the night, huddled together for warmth and comfort. The bond between us had grown stronger in the face of adversity, and our love became a beacon of hope amidst the darkness. "Marek," Anna whispered one night, as we lay under the stars, "do you ever think about what life will be like after the war?" "Every day," I admitted, squeezing her hand gently. "I dream of a life where we can be free, where we can rebuild and live without fear." She smiled, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Promise me we'll see that day together." "I promise," I said, my voice firm with resolve. "We will get through this, and we'll build a future together." Our discussions often turned to plans for the future, imagining a world where we could live in peace. We dreamed of opening a small workshop together, where I could continue my work as a mechanic and she could pursue her passion for writing. These dreams kept us going, fueling our determination to survive and resist. The farm became a hive of activity, with people constantly coming and going through the tunnels. We coordinated with other resistance groups, sharing information and resources. Every successful mission, every life saved, was a small victory in our fight against the overwhelming tide of oppression. One day, as we were planning a new escape route for a group of refugees, Josef pulled me aside. "Marek, we have a problem," he said, his voice low and urgent. "The Nazis are increasing their patrols in the area. We need to be extra careful." I nodded, feeling the weight of his words. "We'll tighten security and make sure everyone is on high alert. We can't afford to make any mistakes." Despite the constant danger, we continued our work, driven by the belief that what we were doing was right. Jacob's music became a symbol of our resilience, a reminder that even in the darkest times, hope could still flourish. One evening, as Jacob played a particularly uplifting piece, I noticed Josef standing at the edge of the room, his eyes fixed on the young musician. "He's talented," Josef remarked, coming to stand beside me. "His music gives us strength." "Yes," I agreed, watching Jacob with a mixture of pride and sadness. "He's been through so much, but he hasn't let it break him."
Józef nodded thoughtfully.
"We need more people like him, people who can inspire others to keep fighting." As the weeks turned into months, our little sanctuary became a beacon of hope for many. We managed to help dozens of families escape to safety, each success a testament to our determination and courage. But with each victory came new challenges, and the ever-present threat of discovery loomed over us like a dark shadow. One night, as Anna and I sat by the fire, she looked at me with a mixture of love and worry. "Marek, do you ever wonder if we'll make it out of this alive?" she asked softly. "Every day," I replied, pulling her close. "But if we give up now, everything we've fought for will be in vain. We have to keep going." She rested her head on my shoulder, her voice barely above a whisper. "As long as we're together, I can face anything." Our quiet moment was interrupted by a sudden commotion outside. Yosef burst into the room, his face pale with urgency. "Marek, we have a situation," he said, his voice tense. "A group of refugees just arrived, but they were followed. We need to move quickly." Adrenaline surged through me as I sprang into action. "Anna, stay here with Jacob. Yosef and I will handle this." Outside, the farm was a flurry of activity as our comrades prepared for the worst. We quickly ushered the new arrivals into the tunnels, ensuring they were safe before turning our attention to the approaching threat. Yosef and I took up positions near the entrance, our hearts pounding as we waited for the inevitable confrontation. The sound of approaching footsteps grew louder, and I could see the fear in Yosef's eyes. "Stay calm," I whispered, gripping my weapon tightly. "We can do this." The first Nazi soldier appeared at the edge of the clearing, his rifle at the ready. Yosef and I exchanged a quick glance before opening fire, the crack of gunshots echoing through the night. The soldiers were caught off guard, scrambling for cover as we fought to protect our sanctuary. In the chaos, I caught sight of a familiar face, Stanislaw, the traitor who had betrayed us. Rage flared within me as I focused on him, determined to make him pay for his treachery. But before I could act, Yosef was hit, collapsing to the ground with a pained cry.
Yosef!
I shouted, firing at the soldiers as I rushed to his side. "Stay with me!" He looked up at me, his face contorted with pain.
Go, Marek!
"Protect the others." "I won't leave you," I vowed, my voice breaking. With a final, anguished look, Yosef slipped into unconsciousness. I fought back tears as I continued to defend our home, driven by the knowledge that our fight was far from over. Eventually, the soldiers retreated, leaving us to tend to our wounded and mourn our losses. Yosef's sacrifice weighed heavily on me, but his bravery inspired us to keep fighting. As dawn broke, I returned to the farmhouse, exhausted but determined. Anna and Jacob were waiting, their faces etched with worry. "Is it over?" Anna asked, her voice trembling. "For now," I replied, pulling her into a tight embrace. "But we can't let our guard down. We have to stay vigilant." Jacob approached, his violin in hand. "I'll play something to lift our spirits," he said, his voice steady despite the fear in his eyes. As the haunting strains of his music filled the air, I felt a renewed sense of hope. We had faced unimaginable horrors, but we had also found strength in each other. Our fight was far from over, but as long as we stood together, I knew we could endure. In the quiet moments between battles, Anna and I continued to dream of a future beyond the war. We made plans, whispered promises, and held on to the belief that one day we would find peace. And through it all, Jacob's music remained a constant reminder of the resilience of the human spirit. No matter how dark the storm, there was always a glimmer of hope, a beacon of light to guide us through the tempest. Our sanctuary on the farm became more than just a refuge. It was a testament to our courage, our determination, and our unwavering belief in a better future. We had found hope in the most unlikely of places, and as long as we held on to that hope, we knew we could weather any storm. ###6 The ambush. The morning sun had barely risen when we received the news. One of our contacts from the Polish resistance had intercepted a communication about a Nazi convoy transporting prisoners through a nearby forest. The message was clear. This was a golden opportunity to strike a blow against the occupiers and rescue those who were being transported to certain death. My heart raced as I gathered everyone in our makeshift hideout to relay the plan. "Listen up," I began, my voice steady but urgent. "We have a chance to intercept a Nazi convoy today. They're transporting prisoners, innocent people who need our help. This is risky, but it's worth it. We'll split into 2 groups to attack from both sides of the road. Timing is crucial. We have to be precise and unified." Jacob, always the brave one, stepped forward. "I'll be with you, Marek. We can't let this chance slip by." Anna, her eyes filled with determination, nodded. "I'll take the rear. We need to cover all angles." We spent the next hour meticulously planning every detail. Maps were spread out on the rough wooden table, markers indicating our positions. We rehearsed signals and fallback plans, knowing that even the slightest mistake could be fatal. Despite the tension, there was a sense of unity among us, a shared purpose that transcended fear. As we moved into position, the forest was eerily silent. The only sounds were the crunching of leaves under our boots and the occasional bird call. I took my place behind a thick oak tree, my heart pounding in my chest. Jacob was beside me, his violin left behind for the first time since we met. Anna and the others were scattered, hidden among the underbrush, waiting for the moment to strike. Minutes felt like hours as we waited. Finally, the sound of engines broke the silence. The convoy appeared on the dirt road, a line of trucks flanked by armed soldiers. I raised my hand, signaling everyone to get ready. The plan was simple: take out the guards, stop the trucks, and free the prisoners. But nothing ever goes according to plan in war. As the first truck rolled closer, I gave the signal. Gunfire erupted from both sides, catching the Nazis off guard. Soldiers fell, and chaos ensued. Jacob and I rushed forward, aiming for the drivers. The sound of bullets and screams filled the air, a cacophony of violence that seemed to stretch on forever. "Cover me!" I shouted to Jacob as I dashed towards the nearest truck. He provided cover fire, his shots precise and determined. I reached the driver's side, pulling the door open and yanking the driver out. The man struggled, but I overpowered him, throwing him to the ground and taking control of the vehicle. Just as I was about to signal the all clear, a deafening explosion rocked the area. One of the trucks had been hit, its cargo of ammunition igniting in a fiery blast. The force threw me to the ground, my ears ringing and vision blurred. I struggled to get up, my body aching from the impact. Merrick, are you okay?" Jacob's voice cut through the haze. He reached down, pulling me to my feet. "We need to move now." I nodded, trying to regain my bearings. The scene around us was chaotic, flames licking at the trees, bodies strewn across the road. Anna was on the other side, helping to free the prisoners from another truck. We had to get them to safety before more Nazi reinforcements arrived. "Everyone, fall back! To the woods!" I shouted, waving people towards the dense forest. The prisoners, dazed and terrified, followed us, their eyes filled with a mixture of fear and hope. Jacob and I provided cover, firing at any remaining soldiers who tried to stop us. As we reached the cover of the trees, I took a moment to assess the situation. We had lost several members of our group, their sacrifice weighing heavily on my heart. But we had also saved lives, people who would have faced unimaginable horrors if we hadn't intervened. Anna approached, her face smudged with dirt and sweat. "We did it, Merrick. We saved them." I nodded, but the victory felt hollow. "But at what cost, Anna? We lost so many." She placed a hand on my shoulder, her grip firm. "They knew the risks, just as we did. Their sacrifice wasn't in vain. We have to keep going, for them." Jacob, ever the optimist, chimed in. "We can't let their deaths be for nothing. We have to find a new way to fight, a new plan." He was right. We couldn't give up now, not when we had come this far. The road ahead was uncertain, but we had each other, and that gave me hope. As we regrouped in a hidden clearing, I gathered everyone around. "We need a new plan," I began, my voice resolute. "The Nazis will be on high alert after this. We need to be smarter, more cautious. But we can't stop fighting. For every life we save, for every blow we strike, we bring ourselves one step closer to freedom." The group nodded in agreement, their resolve unwavering. Despite the losses, despite the pain, we were united in our cause. We would continue to fight, to resist, to hope. Jacob, his violin once again in hand, began to play a haunting melody. The music floated through the trees, a reminder of what we were fighting for, a world where beauty and humanity could thrive, even in the darkest of times. Anna leaned in close, her voice a whisper. "We'll make it, Merrick. We have to." I squeezed her hand, drawing strength from her presence. "We will, Anna. Together." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the forest, we prepared for the challenges ahead. The road to freedom was long and fraught with danger, but with hope and determination, we would persevere. For the future, for those we had lost, and for the promise of a better world. ####The sacrifice of Anna. I remember that fateful day as if it were yesterday. Anna, with her unwavering courage and determination, made a decision that would change the course of our fight against the Nazis. It was a decision that came with great peril, but also with the potential to save countless lives. Her resolve was both inspiring and heart-wrenching. "Anna, you can't do this," I pleaded with her. "It's too dangerous. If they catch you, they'll kill you." She looked at me with those fierce, determined eyes that I had come to love so deeply. "Merrick, we don't have a choice. The information we need is crucial. If we can get it, we can strike a significant blow to the Nazis. I have to do this." We were hiding in the farmhouse, our new base of operations. The old wooden beams creaked above us as we huddled around a small, flickering candle. Jacob sat nearby, his violin silent for once, the gravity of the situation weighing heavily on all of us. "But why does it have to be you?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "There must be another way." Anna shook her head. "I'm the best candidate. I've been observing them closely. I know their routines. Besides, if I go, they might not suspect anything. They won't think a woman would be involved in resistance activities." Jacob finally spoke, his voice trembling. "Anna, please. There has to be another way." She reached out and touched his shoulder gently. "Jacob, I need you to be strong. For all of us. We are fighting for our lives, for our freedom. Sometimes, sacrifices must be made." I knew she was right, but the thought of losing her was unbearable. We had shared so much in such a short time. Our love had blossomed amidst the chaos and fear, a beacon of hope in the darkest of times. Letting her go felt like tearing a piece of my soul apart. "Promise me one thing," I said, my voice choked with emotion. "If you sense any danger, if you think you're about to be discovered, leave immediately. Don't take unnecessary risks." Anna nodded, her eyes softening.
I promise, Marek.
"I will be careful." The next morning, as the first light of dawn crept through the cracks in the farmhouse walls, Anna prepared to leave. She wore simple, nondescript clothing, blending in with the general population. We exchanged a final, lingering embrace, our hearts heavy with unspoken words. "I love you, Anna," I whispered in her ear. "Come back to me." "I love you too, Merrick," she replied, her voice steady. "I'll do my best." And with that, she was gone. The days that followed were some of the longest and most agonizing of my life. Every second felt like an eternity as we waited for any news, any sign of her. Jacob tried to keep our spirits up by playing his violin, but even his music couldn't chase away the gnawing fear that gripped my heart. Then, one evening, as we sat in the farmhouse, a messenger arrived with a hastily scribbled note. It was from Anna. My hands trembled as I unfolded the paper, my eyes scanning the words. "Merrick, I have the information. The Nazis are planning to transport a large cache of munitions to the front lines. The depot is located at the coordinates below. Use this information wisely. I'm being pursued, and I don't know if I can make it back. Remember, I love you. Anna." The room fell silent as I read the note aloud. Jacob's eyes filled with tears, and he looked at me, his voice barely a whisper. "Merrick, we have to act quickly. We can't let her sacrifice be in vain." I nodded, my resolve hardening. "You're right, Jacob. We'll use this information to strike a blow against the Nazis. Anna's courage will not go to waste." We quickly gathered our remaining allies and devised a plan to attack the depot. The risk was enormous, but the potential reward was worth it. We moved under the cover of darkness, our hearts heavy with the knowledge that Anna might not return. As we approached the depot, the tension was palpable. We moved with stealth and precision, avoiding patrols and setting our charges. The explosion that followed was a deafening roar, lighting up the night sky. The depot was destroyed, and with it, a significant supply of Nazi munitions. But the victory was bittersweet. Anna's absence hung over us like a dark cloud. We had struck a blow against our oppressors, but the cost was almost too much to bear. Days turned into weeks, and there was no sign of Anna. Hope began to fade, and the reality of her sacrifice settled in. Jacob and I mourned her deeply, our shared pain forging an even stronger bond between us. One evening, as we sat by the fire, Jacob spoke, his voice filled with a quiet determination. "Merrick, Anna's bravery has inspired me. I want to continue the fight, to honor her memory. We can't give up now." I looked at him, seeing the fire in his eyes. "You're right, Jacob. We owe it to Anna, to everyone we've lost, to keep fighting. Her sacrifice will not be in vain." And so, we pressed on, driven by the memory of Anna's courage. Her sacrifice became a symbol of hope and resilience, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit could shine brightly. In the end, we did achieve victory. The Nazis were defeated, and the war came to an end. Jacob went on to become a renowned violinist, dedicating his performances to the memory of those who had fought and fallen. As for me, I continued to live in the quiet farmhouse, cherishing the memories of Anna and the love we had shared. Anna's sacrifice was a poignant reminder of the cost of freedom, but also of the strength and bravery that lay within each of us. Her legacy lived on, inspiring future generations to stand up against oppression and fight for a better world. And in my heart, she remained a symbol of hope, a beacon of light in the darkest of times. Topic 8. The Depot Destruction. The night was heavy with the weight of impending danger. The moon hung high, casting an eerie silver glow over the landscape. I gathered with my comrades in the cramped cellar of our temporary safe house, the tension palpable in the air. Jacob, despite his youth, sat beside me, his face hardened by the trials we had endured. The loss of Anna was fresh in our hearts, and her sacrifice weighed heavily on our minds. But we had no time to grieve. Her final message had given us crucial information, and we had to act on it. "Listen up," I began, addressing the group. "Anna's intel points to a significant depot of Nazi munitions just outside town. If we can destroy it, we can severely cripple their operations in this region." I looked around at the faces of my fellow resistance members. Each one bore the scars of war, both visible and invisible. There was a collective nod of agreement, a shared determination that bound us together. "Merrick," spoke Pyotr, one of our most seasoned fighters, "how do we plan to get past their guards? This won't be an easy task." I took a deep breath, outlining the plan we had painstakingly crafted. "We'll split into 2 teams. Team A will create a diversion at the north entrance, drawing the guards away. Meanwhile, Team B, which I'll lead, will infiltrate from the south and plant the explosives. Timing is crucial. We need to be in and out before they realize what's happening." Jacob's eyes met mine, filled with a mixture of fear and resolve. "I want to be with you, Merrick," he said, his voice steady. "I need to do this." I placed a hand on his shoulder, feeling the weight of responsibility for this young man who had become like a brother to me. "All right, Jacob. But you stay close to me, and you follow my lead." "Understood." He nodded, and we finalized our preparations. As we moved out into the night, the silence was broken only by the soft crunch of our footsteps on the gravel path. The closer we got to the depot, the more my heart pounded. The gravity of our mission was clear. Success meant a significant blow to the Nazis, but failure could mean death for us all. Reaching the southern perimeter, we crouched low, watching the sparse patrols move in their predictable patterns. I signaled for Pyotr's team to commence their diversion. Moments later, the sound of gunfire and shouting echoed from the north, and we saw the guards rushing towards the commotion. "Now," I whispered, and we moved swiftly, using the shadows to our advantage. Jacob and I reached the outer wall of the depot, where we found a small gap in the fencing. Squeezing through, we made our way to the storage building where the munitions were kept. Inside, the scent of oil and metal was overpowering. We quickly located the crates of ammunition and began planting the explosives. Jacob worked beside me, his hands steady despite the danger. "Merrick," he whispered, "do you think Anna knew this would be her last mission?" I paused, the question hanging in the air. "She knew the risks, Jacob. We all do. But she believed in what we're fighting for, and she gave her life to help us. We honor her by seeing this through." Jacob nodded, determination hardening his features. We finished planting the charges and set the timers. As we made our way back to the exit, the sound of footsteps approached. We ducked behind a stack of crates, holding our breath as a pair of Nazi soldiers entered the building. "I thought I heard something," one of them muttered in German. "Probably just rats," the other replied dismissively. They moved past us, and we waited until their footsteps faded before slipping out. The diversion had worked, but we were not safe yet. As we exited the building and headed towards our escape route, an alarm suddenly blared. "Run!" I shouted. We sprinted through the darkness, gunfire erupting behind us. Jacob stumbled, letting out a gasp as a bullet grazed his leg. I grabbed his arm, half carrying him as we darted for cover. We made it to the edge of the forest, where our comrades were waiting with a makeshift stretcher. "We need to get him to safety," I urged, my voice strained with worry. Pyotr and another resistance member lifted Jacob onto the stretcher, and we moved as quickly as we could through the dense forest. The sound of explosions erupted in the distance, a fiery glow lighting up the night sky behind us. The depot was destroyed, but the cost was high. We reached our hidden hospital, a small cabin deep in the woods, and the medics immediately began tending to Jacob's wound. I stood by, my heart heavy with a mixture of relief and dread. The mission was a success, but the reality of war had once again claimed its toll. "Marek," Jacob's voice was weak but determined, "we did it, didn't we?" I nodded, a lump forming in my throat. "Yes, Jacob, we did." The days that followed were filled with a tense calm. Jacob's recovery was slow, but his spirit remained unbroken. The destruction of the depot had significantly weakened the Nazi presence in our region, and whispers of hope began to spread among the resistance. One evening, as I sat by Jacob's bedside, he looked up at me with a question in his eyes. "Marek, do you ever think about what we'll do when this is all over?" I sighed, the weight of the future pressing down on me. "Sometimes. I dream of a world where we can live without fear, where we can rebuild what was lost. But for now, we have to keep fighting." Jacob reached for his violin, which had miraculously survived our harrowing journey. He began to play a soft, haunting melody, the notes weaving through the air like a balm for our weary souls. In that moment, despite the pain and loss, there was a glimmer of hope. We had struck a blow against the darkness, and as long as we had the will to fight, there was still a chance for a brighter future. The memory of Anna's bravery, the resilience of Jacob, and the determination of our comrades fueled our resolve. We would continue to resist, to fight for freedom and justice, no matter the cost. And so, in the midst of war, we found a flicker of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit can endure and triumph. Chapter 9. The Sweet Victory. As I sit by Jacob's bed, watching him slowly regain his strength, I can't help but feel a mixture of relief and exhaustion washing over me. The war has taken its toll on all of us, but there is a glimmer of hope on the horizon. The radio crackles with news of the Allies advancing, pushing the Nazis back. It's a bittersweet symphony, a melody of hope intertwined with the somber notes of our losses. "How are you feeling today, Jacob?" I ask, my voice soft but tinged with the weariness of years filled with struggle. Jacob, now a young man with a resilience that belies his age, manages a weak smile. "Better, Marek. Every day a little stronger. I owe my life to you." I shake my head, a small smile playing on my lips. "We owe each other, Jacob. It's the bonds we've formed that have kept us going." The room we're in is makeshift, part of an improvised hospital hidden in the basement of an old farmhouse. The air smells of antiseptic and hope, a strange combination that has become all too familiar. Despite the dire circumstances, there is a sense of camaraderie here, a shared purpose that binds us all. As the days turn into weeks, Jacob's recovery progresses. One evening, as we gather around a small radio, the crackling voice of a broadcaster brings us the news we've been yearning to hear. The Allies have made significant advances on the Eastern Front. Reports indicate that Nazi forces are retreating. Liberation is on the horizon. A collective sigh of relief fills the room, a weight lifting off our shoulders. The war isn't over yet, but the tide is turning in our favor. I glance at Jacob, whose eyes are shining with renewed determination. "Marek," he says, his voice steady despite the roughness of his recent ordeal, "I want to continue fighting. I can't just sit and wait. There are still so many who need our help." I place a hand on his shoulder, understanding the fire that burns within him. "I know, Jacob, and we will keep fighting. But we must be smart about it. We can't afford to lose anyone else." Our conversation is interrupted by the arrival of a familiar face. Anya, another member of the resistance, enters the room with a sense of urgency. "Marek, Jacob, we have news. The Nazis are planning a retreat from the local garrison. This could be our chance to strike a decisive blow." I nod, feeling the familiar rush of adrenaline. "We'll need a plan. And we need to be careful. We can't afford any mistakes." Over the next few days, we gather intelligence and devise our strategy. Our goal is to disrupt the retreat, to weaken their forces further and hasten the liberation of our region. It's a dangerous mission, but one that could turn the tide in our favor. As we prepare, Jacob and I share a quiet moment in the corner of the room. The weight of our journey hangs heavy between us, but so does the hope for a brighter future. "Remember when we first met, Jacob?" I ask, a nostalgic smile on my face. "You were just a boy with a violin, bringing music to a world filled with darkness." Jacob chuckles softly. "And you were the brave mechanic who turned his workshop into a sanctuary." "We've come a long way, Marek." "We have," I agree, my voice filled with pride. "And we'll go even further. For Anna, for everyone we've lost, and for the future we dream of." The night before our mission, I find myself unable to sleep. Memories of Anna flood my mind, her courage and sacrifice a constant reminder of what we're fighting for. I step outside, the cool night air a balm to my restless thoughts. "Marek!" Jacob's voice breaks the silence, and I turn to see him standing in the doorway. "Couldn't sleep either, huh?" I ask, offering a small smile. He shakes his head. "Too much on my mind. But I wanted to tell you something. No matter what happens, thank you. For everything." I pull him into a hug, the bond we've formed over the years stronger than any words. "We're in this together, Jacob. Always." The following day, our plan is set into motion. We move with precision, our movements a dance of survival and defiance. As we engage the retreating Nazi forces, the air is filled with the sounds of battle and the cries of determination. Jacob fights with a fierceness that surprises even me, his violin replaced by a weapon but his spirit unwavering. We push forward, the tide of battle turning in our favor. And then, in a moment of clarity, I realize that victory is within our grasp. As the dust settles and the last echoes of gunfire fade, we stand victorious. The Nazis are retreating, their hold on our region broken. It's a moment of triumph, but also one of reflection. The cost has been high, but the promise of freedom is finally within our reach. In the days that follow, the news of our victory spreads. The Allies continue their advance, and the grip of the Nazi regime weakens further. Jacob and I find ourselves at the heart of a burgeoning hope, our efforts a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. "Marek," Jacob says one evening, as we sit by a fire, the warmth a stark contrast to the coldness of war. "When this is all over, what will you do?" I ponder his question, the future a vast unknown. "I don't know, Jacob, but I do know that as long as there is hope, there is a future worth fighting for." He nods, his eyes filled with a determination that mirrors my own. "And we'll face it together." As the war nears its end, we receive word of the ultimate victory. The Nazis are defeated, their reign of terror finally over. The world breathes a collective sigh of relief, the promise of peace a beacon of hope in the aftermath of darkness. Jacob, now a young man with a spirit forged in the fires of war, decides to pursue his passion for music. He becomes a renowned violinist, his performances a tribute to the resilience and courage of those who fought for freedom. As for me, I find solace in the memories of those we've lost and the promise of a future we fought so hard to secure. The war has left its mark on me, but it has also taught me the power of hope and the strength of the human spirit. In the quiet moments, I think of Anna, of her sacrifice and the love we shared. Her memory is a guiding light, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope. Through Jacob's music, through the stories we share, the legacy of our struggle lives on. We are a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, a symbol of hope in the face of adversity. And as I look to the horizon, the promise of a new dawn fills me with a sense of peace. We have endured the storm, and now, in the light of victory, we find the strength to rebuild and to dream of a brighter future. Topic 10. The Final Twist. As the war neared its end and the Nazi grip on Poland began to weaken, the tension in the air felt almost unbearable. Every day, we heard rumors of Allied advances, and the sense of liberation was tantalizingly close. Yet, the danger was far from over. Our hidden sanctuary in the isolated farm remained a hive of activity as we continued to assist those in need and disrupt the enemy wherever possible. One cold morning, as I was tending to a makeshift radio to catch any news, Jacob approached me with a mixture of excitement and caution. His recovery had been slow but steady, and his spirit seemed unbreakable despite the countless hardships we had faced. "Marek, I heard something on the radio," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "The Allies have breached the German defenses on the Western Front. It's only a matter of time now." I looked at Jacob, my heart swelling with a cautious optimism. "That's good news, Jacob. But we must remain vigilant. The enemy is most dangerous when cornered." Jacob nodded, understanding the gravity of my words. "I know, Marek. But I can't help but feel that the end is finally in sight." As the days passed, the trickle of good news turned into a flood. The Nazis were retreating, their forces crumbling under the relentless push of the Allies. It felt as though the very air was charged with the electricity of impending freedom. One evening, as we sat around a small fire, trying to stay warm in the bitter cold, a familiar face appeared at the edge of our camp. It was one of our contacts from the resistance, a man named Pyotr. His expression was grave, and I could tell immediately that he bore important news. "Marek, Jacob," Pyotr began, his voice low and urgent. "We've captured Stanislaw." A chill ran down my spine at the mention of the traitor's name. Stanislaw, the neighbor who had betrayed so many, including us, had finally been caught. I exchanged a glance with Jacob, who wore a look of grim satisfaction. "What will happen to him?" Jacob asked, his voice steady but laced with the pain of betrayal. Pyotr sighed, his eyes hardening. "He will be tried by the resistance for his crimes. Justice will be served." The trial of Stanislaw was swift and unrelenting. His crimes were laid bare before the resistance members, each betrayal a stark reminder of the dangers we had faced, often from those we thought we could trust. As I stood in the makeshift courtroom, I couldn't help but feel a mixture of relief and sorrow. The war had taken so much from us, and yet, here was a small measure of justice. Stanislaw's voice trembled as he tried to defend his actions. "I did what I had to do to survive. You would have done the same." I stepped forward, my voice calm but resolute.
"No, Stanislaw.
We fought to protect, to save lives. You chose to betray and destroy. There is a difference, and it is that difference that defines us." The verdict was unanimous. Stanislaw was found guilty of treason and sentenced accordingly. His capture and trial marked a significant turning point, not just for us, but for the entire community that had suffered under his betrayals. Finally, the day we had all been waiting for arrived. The war was over. The streets of Poland were filled with a mixture of tears and laughter, a bittersweet symphony of relief and mourning. We had lost so much, but we had also gained an unbreakable bond forged in the fires of adversity. Jacob, now a young man with a fierce determination, stood beside me as we watched the celebrations. "Marek, we did it. We survived." I placed a hand on his shoulder, my voice filled with pride. "Yes, Jacob. And now, we must honor those we lost by living our lives fully and freely." In the years that followed, Jacob's talent as a violinist blossomed. He became a renowned musician, his performances echoing with the haunting beauty of his experiences. Each note he played was a tribute to those who had fallen, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. One evening, as I sat in the audience of a grand concert hall, I watched Jacob take the stage. His eyes met mine briefly, a silent acknowledgement of our shared history. As he began to play, the room filled with a melody that spoke of hope, loss, and the indomitable will to survive. After the performance, Jacob approached me, his violin still in hand. "Marek, I want you to know that every time I play, I think of you. Your courage, your humanity, it saved me. It saved us all." I smiled, my heart swelling with pride and gratitude. "And you, Jacob, remind the world of the beauty that can arise even in the darkest times." As the years went by, the story of Marek Kowalski, the mechanic who became a beacon of hope, spread far and wide. My actions during the war were recognized, not just in Poland, but across the world. Plaques were erected, books were written, and my story was told to countless generations. But for me, the greatest reward was seeing Jacob thrive, knowing that I had played a part in preserving his future. His success was a testament to the fact that even in the midst of the most brutal storm, hope could flourish. One day, as we sat together reminiscing, Jacob turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "Marek, do you ever wonder what life would have been like if the war had never happened?" I looked at him, the weight of our shared experiences etched into my soul.
Ido, Jakob.
But I also know that the bonds we formed, the lives we saved, those are things that might never have happened otherwise. In the darkest of times, we found the light in each other. Jacob nodded, a tear slipping down his cheek. "Thank you, Marek, for everything." And so, as the world moved forward, we carried with us the lessons of the past. Marek Kowalski, the humble mechanic, became a symbol of courage and humanity. His legacy lived on in the hearts of those he saved, a testament to the power of hope and the enduring strength of the human spirit.